Welcome, everybody, to an all-new episode of the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. I am Brian Ciano. Thank you so much for joining us as we take our weekly look at everything going on in the world of combat sports. And there's lots going on, lots coming up in the next couple weeks. Had a few slow weeks here, obviously, with the holiday. They took a couple weeks off break. All the major organizations we have been following took some time off, but we'll get into what is coming up as we did last week. Previewing the summer, we'll talk about some of the stuff coming up, some of the news that broke over the last couple of weeks. A lot of stuff going on in the world of combat sports, and we'll get into it all with the PFL, the BKFC, and Lights Out Extreme Fighting. Coming up on the show later on, we're going to talk to BKFC featherweight Rico Disciullo, who's going to be fighting on that fight card, that fight night up there at the Mohegan Sun for the BKFC. We'll talk to him about his first fight with them, as well as his upcoming one, and as well as his past in MMA. So one of the greatest knockouts you will ever see. We'll touch on all that when we talk to him. Also, later on, we'll talk out with Lights Out Extreme Fighting middleweight Curtis Millender, a guy who's been around a long time. If you've been following mixed martial arts, you know that name. He's been fighting in various organizations. We'll talk to him about the journey and the path that it's been for him getting here to Lights Out Extreme Fighting, and about him headlining this card coming up in a couple of weeks. All that on the show, as well as some new news from the BKFC about fights that are being added to cards and places that are being added. Some new news about the PFL. We'll talk about them releasing kind of the rundown of these fights we're going to see in the semifinal cards, how the fights are stacked up. We will also talk about the PFL Europe, some of the fights and the schedule for them coming up over these next couple months. And we'll even get into some things coming up with that Cape Town card that has been changed. All that coming up here on the Combat Sports Report on this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the BKFC and about some of the fights that are being added to these cards that we are seeing in these next couple of weeks. Of course, as we get closer and closer to these things, we get more and more information about who's going to be fighting where, other things that are changes being made, things like that. So let's first start with one of the ones coming up very soon, and that is the BKFC 75 Albuquerque card. That's coming up next week. We talked to, of course, Dave Mundell about that. The Redneck was going to be headlining that card, defending his title. Well, one fight that has been added to that card as well is that women's strawweight. We're going to see Jenny Savage versus Crystal Van Wyck. Savage, a 32-year-old American who's 3-3 in the BKFC, lost back-to-back decisions to Britton Hart in March of 23 and Taylor Starling in January of 24. Now making a return almost over a year later, almost a year and a half later at this point. And she also lost a glove boxing fight to Elle Brooke in September 24. So in between the fights that we've seen for her in the BKFC, she went and tried some glove boxing. Did not work out well for her against the very popular online presence in Elle Brooke. So now she's coming back to the BKFC, and we'll see what she does against Crystal Van Wyck. Van Wyck from South Africa, of course, trains now in North Carolina. It's 2-1, the 38-year-old in the BKFC. Just beat Emma Murray in December of 24 by decision. Before that, she lost to Dr. Sarah Schell by decision and beat Crystal Lawson by decision back in May 24 and February 24. So was active early in the year, then had a little break. Came back at the end of the year to get back in the winning records and get over 500. So now we'll see her against Jenny Savage. Going to be very interesting to see how this goes. I mean, Savage is a fighter who likes to get in people's faces, likes to try to push the action. We'll see if she can do that against Van Wyck, or if she'll be able to weather the storm, pick her apart from outside, and get the decision like she has gone to in all of her fights so far with the BKFC. Also coming up later this month, we will have BKFC 76, the Texas card, coming up at the end of June there. June 21st, the first time the BKFC will be in Texas. Of course, going to be headlined by that Tenaglia versus Soto rematch. A lot of other fights we've talked about on there, like, of course, Andrei Arlovsky making his debut. We talked about the women's debut with Jessica Ai and Maria Agapova, both making their debut, former MMA fighters coming over to the BKFC. Well, we had some more fights added to that card as well, some of them very exciting. Let's start first with the lightweight battle between JC De Leon and Ruben War. De Leon from Texas, 1-3 in MMA in his career, making his BKFC debut. He's got a 2-0 record in other bare knuckle boxing promotions. So, while he's not been with the BKFC, he does have experience taking the gloves off and just going fist to face. And he'll do that against Ruben Bad Boy War. War, the 36-year-old, now residing in Louisville, of course, formerly of California. 2-1, 1-0 contest in the BKFC. Coming off that decision loss to Bovar Konikov in November of 24. He was riding high before that with that 6-second KO of Robbie Problems Peralta, one of the fastest in the history of the sport and of all combat sports back there in July of 2024. So we'll see what he does coming off that loss to Konikov. Can he rebound? I know he's got a lot of things going on. Obviously, I saw he started his own business, kind of went out on his own with the construction work he was doing on houses. that he also, of course, is a dad, has lots of time that he has to spend with his kids, and I believe also got engaged recently. So a lot of things going on in the life of Ruben War. Now he's got to buckle down, get to training, and be ready to fight in Texas against the local boy in De Leon. Also on that, we found out that at heavyweight, we will see Anthony Garrett versus Hayes Wilson. Wilson, the hooligan, the 38-year-old from Oklahoma, so close to Texas, of course, not right there. So we'll see how the fans take him. You know, you got that whole Oklahoma-Texas rivalry, so does he get enough people coming over the border there, over the Red River, to go cheer him on? Or is he going to get a little hostility from the locals there in Texas? We will find out. But he is a kickboxer making his BKFC debut. 3 bare-knuckle boxing fights and other promotions before this. So, again, another fighter who is making his debut with this organization but has experience. He had all first or second round finishes in his other bare-knuckle fights, including 2 of them ending in under 1 minute. So this guy's got power. He's got tenacity. He's going to come and bring it right away. He's going to go against Garrett Lionheart, 35-year-old from Kansas City, who now lives and trains in Texas, I believe. So he will have some people there in his corner cheering him on, of course. He's a former kickboxer and MMA fighter as well, but has good experience in the BKFC. 2 fights at heavyweight for the BKFC. Both those, I believe, on short notice, too. And, of course, what did they lead to? Well, he had a 16-second KO of John Orr in August of 2024 and a 12-second KO of LeVar Johnson in November of 2024. So short notice fights close together did not bother him. He got the job done quick. We know that he has that quick power, obviously that one-punch knockout ability. So who gets the better of each other? Both these guys have a lot of quick finishes in their careers, a bunch in bare-knuckle boxing. Can they do it now against the other one? Who is going to have to be the one that goes down in this one? Because you know it's not lasting. It might not even get to the second round, let alone going 5 between these guys at heavyweight. Should be an awesome fight. Don't blink. Also at heavyweight, you're getting a debut from a couple guys here. First, you get Davis, the 30-year-old from West Virginia. Alex Davis, he's a former glove boxer, 1-1 in BKFC with a 22nd KO of Hayden Brown in September 24 and third round loss to Braxton Smith in December 2024. Guy who's making the debut is the one against him. Morrison, Kenzie Morrison. You might know the name. Of course, the son of Tommy Morrison, the longtime glove boxer, the guy who was a movie star with, Stallone in the last Rocky there. 34-year-old Oklahoman now continues to follow in his father's footsteps as far as combat sports. Former glove boxer, 22-1-2 over the course of his boxing career. Lots of KO, TKO finishes. Beat guys like Sam Shoemaker, who, of course, we know from the BKFC, as well as Asim Rockman Jr. So he's now making his BKFC debut, coming off with all that, taking those gloves off. Very interesting. When you see a guy who has such a great record, you kind of wonder why they make that switch. Well, I'm sure it's the love of the fight game. A lot of these guys just enjoy doing that, and we'll see what he does here in his first fight for the BKFC. It is going to be awesome to see those fights added to Texas on top of all the other ones we already knew. Also, we got some new news on multiple fronts. First, we found out that the BKFC, we knew they were going to go to Australia at some point this year. Well, that's going to be in July 19th in Perth, Australia. The first time the BKFC will be going all the way over there. BKFC 79 at the RAC Arena. Haven't heard too many about the fights yet. We're going to be finding more and more. I believe they're having a press conference coming up with a lot of those fights, although did hear Dave Feldman talk to our man Brian Socha and tell him that, of course, you're going to have Rowdy Beck Rawlings on the card. She's from there. You can't not include the local talent, especially when they're as big as Beck Rawlings is. So she will be on that. Of course, they squeeze this fight in right after that Perdomo Adams card down in Hollywood, Florida we were talking about, and a few weeks before Sturgis. And it sounds like they're going to get some more cards in there as well. Dave Feldman was talking about maybe the week after this one being back in Philly. So there's going to be a lot of action. There's not going to be a lot of weeks off over the next 3 months here for the BKFC as they continue to add things to it. But when we come back, we'll talk to Rico Disciullo about his upcoming fight on BKFC Fight Night Mohegan Sun here on the Combat Sports Report, only on SportsGrid.
No, we're
have
not.
Some fun?
No, if the
What do
Knicks
you
are losing,
mean?
I'm gonna be miserable.
Be fine.
I'm gonna be miserable. Really? You know what? I'm saying. Knicks are winning tomorrow.
Oh.
Book it. Here we go. Knicks are winning tomorrow. See that guy? No, that's the wrong guy. See that guy? See him? Over his assist prop. Jalen Brunson. He's going over his assist prop.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Heard yesterday that he's got no shot to win the Cy Young because it's going to Skubal again. Skubal's winning the Cy Young, no shot for Fried.
They're both terrific. They both have incredible numbers and credentials and stats and strikeouts and ERA and everything, like every single category. Fried is right there with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Face. It's the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're the face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces in the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. And let's start looking at some of these fights we have coming up with one of the guys that's going to be involved in that is Rico Disciullo, the BKFC featherweight, going to be making his second fight for the BKFC. Of course, a great debut for him, beating Anthony Ford by round 3 TKO back in February. So coming back, fighting at the Mohegan again. Rico, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. We're going to talk about this fight you have coming against Zach Pinnell coming up in a few weeks. But before we get into that, I mean, I want to get to know you a little more, have the people get to know you a little more. I mean, a guy with probably one of the most exciting knockouts that I've ever seen in tough history. The flying, knockout that you had in your first fight there, up there with some of the greatest ones there, like Uriah Hall's spinning wheelhouse kick that he landed on there. What was that experience like for you? And what was it like, to have that video circulate around the internet and make people even more excited about you and your career than they might have been before seeing that?
Yeah, man, that experience was great. It was really cool. The whole experience of Tough was really, really awesome. We had a great group of dudes, all like true professionals, guys that really, really, weren't there to mess around. Everybody was there, to, be the Ultimate Fighter champ, so everybody was there to, just put in the work and fight, man, eat, sleep, fight, repeat, man. So it was a really good atmosphere, great group of guys, and I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, of course, that's always a roll of dice on what kind of guys are in there. Are they focused? Are they in? Or some of the guys just in there for the shenanigans at the house and making a name for themselves. Maybe not with their the fists and the kicks, but maybe just more their ridiculousness and their personality. But it was a great performance by you. You're in your time there, and you've done great things with it. And of course, you were on Team McGregor there. Now you're with the BKFC. What was that connection like in bringing you over? You had a great MMA record. What was the connection with Connor like for you as your coach there, and now as your boss with the BKFC?
Yeah, so it was really cool when I got in touch with Connor a lot, like through social media, through Instagram. We connected a lot outside of once I was done with the Ultimate Fighter and whatnot. I actually I'm in the works of trying to get my social media stuff back with Instagram, but I talked to him a lot. He would just reach out and like give me just pretty much like tips on for the next fight, like prepping for whatever. But guys kept coming up to me. I had a couple different options. When I came back from the Ultimate Fighter, I ended up tearing my knee. So I tore my knee again, and it kind of put things, it kind of made me start to realize, man, I don't want to go through rehab again and do everything. And so it kind of, BKFC, it was weird because that started was, MMA was, the training camps are, grueling. You got to go through wrestling, you got to go through everything. And it's just, I feel like BKFC, the style of what I got to do, like to prep for the fights, are a lot easier for me with my knee injury, and it's just like pretty much showcases everything that I can do and what I like to do anyway. Like I like to go out there. I have really, really diverse striking style. You know what I mean? All these guys, I've fought like and trained with some of the best strikers in the planet. I've always done very, very well. I feel like I could honestly be in this type of format, world champion. You know, I really, really seriously doubt there's anybody at 135, 45, or even 55 that could, you know, that obviously the top 5 guys, once you get to the elite level guys, you know, it's going to be, you know, a little challenging, but I truly believe in my skill set, and especially in this format. You know, I think that I have a huge advantage with the knowledge and background that I have with the dirty boxing, the clinch work, all this. You know, I've been doing Muay Thai for years, which I'm comfortable getting dirty, but I also have a different style. Like I don't really fight conventionally like a lot of these guys do. They're very like conventional, just like boxers. I know how to blend all different types of striking into this and make it to my benefit, you know? So I feel like I could be a problem for anybody in any style.
And of course, you know, Connor, not the only connection you have to the BKFC. Sean Wheelock, a guy that you worked with as a commentator, you know, in your time while you're out with an injury, you're trying the other side of things, seeing things from a different angle. How does that help you, you know, as you've been coming back and working off that injury to, you know, take that time outside the cage and you know, be the guy calling the fights and, you know, seeing what's in the action from that outside the cage perspective, from that commentating perspective, like you did with Sean?
Yeah, so it was funky, like I said. So I came out of The Ultimate Fighter, and you know, I started doing, you know, I hurt my knee, and then so I started thinking of like, you know, other things. You know, I was coaching a little bit. I was trying to get back into MMA and whatnot, and then talked to Sean. I did Combat FC with Sean, you know, Wheelock, which he knows me from my pro debut when I fought for Bellator years ago. So that's how me and him met, and which I wish I had that video, because that was even more of a outrageous knockout on my debut for Bellator, but probably one of the best knockouts I've ever had. But so I've known Sean for a while, so he kept telling me, listen, your style is perfect for BKFC, you know, talk to the guys over there, or let me talk, you know, see if we can get you connected over there, blah, blah, blah. And I was still trying to figure things out, because obviously I've had my career, you know, I've been doing MMA for so long, you know what I mean? And I was thinking bare knuckle, it's kind of gnarly, you know what I mean? You got to kind of prep yourself and train specifically for that. That's what I think people don't really understand. It's like, you know, you got to be very, very technical. You got to be smart about where you place your punches and everything you do. You're not just going out there and brawling. I don't think that's the best way to go about it. I think the smarter guys are the guys that are going to go out there and obviously try to finish, but they're also going to be very smart and calculated about where they place their punches, how much power they put in, what they do. Because, you know, you're bare knuckle. You know, you can finish guys with a jab if you know what you're doing. You know, you can set up things, but also you punch the wrong way, you land on the top of the head, you're breaking your hand. So I think you have to be a lot more intelligent and crafty about how you approach things bare knuckle, and that's why I love it. I'm honestly like, after my first fight, I really, it's you know, like, first of all, it's the biggest growing sport there is right now. You know, it's second to the UFC, which I think it's going to start catapulting like the UFC did back when it first started. And I truly am I just think it's like the rawest form of rawest, like it's the wildest form of fighting. It's true fighting. You know what I mean? You're bare knuckle. There's you can't really stall. You know what I mean? You can fight in the clinch. It's I just love everything about it, to be honest.
That's great to hear. You know, I was going to ask you, know, is this something we're going to stick with? Or are we going back and forth with the MMA? It sounds like you're sold on the BKFC. Sounds like you love it. We got to talk about this fight still. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to bring back Rico Disciullo just after the break to talk about his fight against Zach Pinnell, talk about your first fight against Foy. But, you know, I love the way you talk about the sport and the passion you have. You know, so many people just think that bare knuckle fighting is, you know, you talked about the UFC years ago. That's the same kind of comparison you get. That it's just, you know, the human cockfighting. It's just guys coming in there brawling. It's nothing to it. But the different mental aspects that you're bringing to it obviously shows how much you have studied and how much you have gotten into it. And I love to hear that. So we're going to continue to talk with Rico Disciullo coming up right after the break. Talk about his first fight against Foy in the BKFC and the adjustments he made as he comes back now to fight Zach Pinnell for his second fight over that Mohegan Sun.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups. My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
And if you go through CAT, that means CAT at 11-1 could be Eastern Conference Finals MVP. The worst team in the WNBA is the Chicago Sky. They have no perimeter play. They're playing Sloot too many minutes. And Angel Reese doesn't have the help she needs.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
I actually like the fact that they went 7 games against a quality opponent here and still had to face adversity even in a game number 7. How are we setting up this next series with a rested Minnesota Timberwolves team taking on OKC fresh from the fight here?
They had an extremely, maybe it's just too strong a statement to say, easier pathway than people thought, particularly because of their size.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. We continue to talk to Rico Disciullo. Going to be fighting, of course, on this BKFC Fight Night Mohegan Sun card against Zach Pinnell. We'll talk about that fight in just a second. Before we get into that, let's talk about the fight you had in your first one for the BKFC a couple months ago, Rico. Tell me about the fight that you had against Foy. What was it like for you making that transition? You talk about the different mental aspects that people don't realize with this sport. What were the things that you changed and got ready to do for that fight, and what were some of the things that maybe you caught you off guard and you decided you had to change afterwards? Things that were different, whether it be training or the way you're striking, all that kind of stuff that you learned coming into that for the first time.
Yeah. So before I even was prepped to like do BKFC, I was already doing a lot of work with my boxing coach, which worked out great, which is Eddie Alvarez over in Salem. Alvarez Family Boxing. So I was already doing a ton of just straight boxing work with him. And then once we got into, really, figuring out that, all right, we're going to do, BKFC, instantly we started, tweaking a lot of different things because now you're bare knuckle. So now you don't have things that you can use in boxing, like, you can use your glove defensively, but bare knuckle, there's going to be holes and stuff in your defense. There's things you got to look out for, like punching, elbows or even the top of the head that can do damage. So I think we were very smart about how we approached it. And we worked a lot on like clinch stuff. Cause with boxing, obviously once you can't really clinch the way you can in BKFC, the rules are different. So, you can grab the back of the head as long as you're active and you're moving and you're constantly punching, you can keep going and keep working from there. So we were really smart about how we approach it. And I think, we already had a lot of that knowledge and background into it, so it worked out. Obviously, your first fight for any new sport or anything you're doing new, there's a learning curve, but I feel like we were really, really prepared, and I think the performance showed that.
Absolutely, it was a great performance by you. Is there anything that obviously helps to have a guy like that in your corner who knows the difference? There's plenty of people who make that crossover that don't know that the subtle differences that are going to be there, and you see them kind of having to adjust on the fly like that as they learn that. But now you were prepared for that. Is there anything else you had to tweak, something that maybe caught you off a little bit after that first fight that you need to adjust coming in here for your future in the BKFC?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things, but nothing really major. I feel like we really, I think we had a good game plan going in and understanding on how to make those adjustments for, and it worked out in the first fight. Now we kind of just carrying that on and just adjust and keep on building off of that. Yeah, I feel like this is made for me. Honestly, I feel like this format and this style, I'm super unconventional. Like, I know how to pull punches out of people. I know how to set things up. I know how to. I can fight a lot of different ways. I can get in there and just let it fly and just bang if I have to. If I need to get a knockout, I know how to try to force that. If I can set things up, I can hit from different angles, fight from different stances. There's a lot of different things that I can do. So without giving too much away, but you know what I mean, I feel like I could be a problem for anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the one who's going to be that you're going to be a problem for next is Zach Pinnell, of course, fighting on this card against the Mohegan Sun. I mean, obviously, you're going to have a lot of fans there in your corner, being from that area, being up in New England guy. What do you see from Zach? He's coming off a couple losses. Obviously, he's going to be hungry. Is there anything that you see that you think you have to worry about from him, or you just think you got to come in there and do your thing, and it's going to end up with your hand raised?
Yeah, usually those are the type of people that can be actually really dangerous, especially early on in the fight. Like the first 30 seconds of fight, especially with BKFC, where you start nose to nose, you know what I mean? You're right there on the line. You guys are right face to face. You can get punched right off the rip. You can get knocked out within seconds. So you got to be really careful, smart about how you approach it. I feel like he's going to be a much different fight from my last, which is more of an outside type of boxing striker. I think that he's going to try to get inside. He's going to try to make it dirty, and anything could happen if you lose focus and you don't pay attention. If you're not, totally zoned in. So I just got to be locked in and, use my ability with my footwork and my fakes and movement and just setups to, open things up myself. I don't want to force things too much. I want to make things happen organically. And once I find my opening, completely commit and get the finish, and put on a show for everybody, which, I feel like I did last time. And, I'm going to do it every single time I'm out there.
Well, we look forward to that. It should be a great card at the Mohegan Sun. Some of the ones that you don't expect are always the ones that put on some great performances. And we look forward to seeing your next one here for the BKFC at BKFC Fight Night, Mohegan Sun. Rico Disciullo, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate seeing what's next for you in the squared circle. And, I know you're a dedicated dad as well. So, great job on that. We've seen some great posts about, you supporting your kids and teaching them the discipline of, fight game as well and working with them as they grow up. But we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing this next fight and seeing beyond that. Hopefully we see you a couple times this year. Rico Disciullo, thanks so much for joining us here on the Combat Sports Report.
Greatly appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
We will be fighting Zach Pinnell on June 14th up at the Mohegan Sun. Should be a great card. Going to be lots of action. Always put on some good shows in those smaller squared circles up there at the Mohegan. Looking forward to seeing the next one. Looking forward to seeing what's next down the line for Rico Disciullo as well. Thank you so much to him for joining us. When we come back, we're going to switch things up and start talking about the PFL and their upcoming schedule here on SportsGrid.
Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
If you believe he should be in the Hall of Fame, there's, let's let him wait another 2 years. Wait, he's already dead at this point. Like, what are you waiting for another 2 to 3 years? He's either in or he's out. And sometimes you look at that too, Tom, it's like you can't tell, the history of Major League Baseball without Pete Rose.
Frankly, the writers have some standard that they want to hold players to, which seems to fluctuate on a player-to-player basis. So he should be in the Hall of Fame, but I'm not sure how quickly he'll get there.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
I'm not saying this thing is scripted, but damn it, they put those two teams on the first weekend of the basketball season for a reason, because they were expecting some kind of fireworks. They got it. Did Angel Reese overreact? Probably. Did Caitlin Clark have to stare it down? Probably not. There's enough blame to go both sides. But guess who doesn't care? That's the WNBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Thank you so much, Rico Disciullo, for sitting down with us and getting to know us a little bit more. Let us get to know him a little more as he gets ready to have his second fight for the BKFC coming up at that BKFC Fight Night, Mohegan Sun. Great stuff from him. I love the insight there on how much the mental game factors in for him as he prepares for his second fight with the BKFC. But now let's switch gears and change over to the PFL. There's a lot of action coming up over the next couple months for this organization, as we talked about in our last show, but we have found out even more about some of these fights that are going to be going down both over here in the U.S. with the order of these fights for the semifinals, but we also have found out, of course, some more information on the Cape Town card in South Africa that we're going to talk about in this segment, as well as the European card. So let's get to it right now. First of all, that Cape Town card has a date change. Now it will happen on July 19th. So the PFL Cape Town will be now July 19th, opening up, of course, PFL Africa season, but there have been some other big names added to that card that are going to make you want to watch it for sure. Let's talk about first that we knew that you had the middleweight world title to headline that card with Johnny Eblen and Costello Van Steenis. We talked about that. We also talked about Dakota Ditcheva making her return after winning that tournament last year for the PFL and going against Sumiko Inaba in her first fight back after winning the tournament. So those ones we touched on. We found out some more fights, though, especially two big ones that are going to be up on the top of this card as well. And that will be first at featherweight. You have AJ McKee versus Ahmed Magomedov. Magomedov is a 30-year-old Russian, of course, 10-3 in his career, 8-fight win streak right now for him. Most of his wins have been by decision, including 3 of his last 4, and has never fought in a big organization before. So, of course, you want to ease him in. No, not at all. Let's throw him right to the Wolves and give him to AJ McKee. The 30-year-old from California, of course, is 22-2 in his MMA career. His last fight was against Paul Hughes in that split decision loss, of course, October. But he was on a 4-fight win streak before that in the Bellator and the PFL. The former Bellator champion, very well-rounded, has fought the best of the best in Bellator over the years. Some huge names on his rap sheet. So now he gets to welcome in Magomedov to the PFL. Going to be a tough fight for the Russian. We'll see if he's up to the task against such a well-rounded and polished opponent like AJ McKee. Also on that card, as you see there at heavyweight, you will get Corey Anderson versus Dennis Goldstav. Now Anderson, the 35-year-old, of course, the American, a grappler with a lot of power, former UFC fighter, was 18-6 so far in his career, 8 by KO, TKO, 10 by decision as far as his wins go. The former UFC fighter is a Bellator champion at light heavyweight, winning that abdicated belt right before they finished up with Bellator. He was supposed to fight Vadim Nemkov at heavyweight for the third matchup between those guys. They fought for the belt twice, and he was supposed to fight him at heavyweight back in January. That did not go through for whatever reason. Corey Anderson was taken off. Nemkov fought Tim Johnson instead. Now we get Anderson making his heavyweight debut against Goldstav, the 34-year-old Russian, 36-8 in his MMA career, a 4-fight win streak for him, 18 wins by KO, TKO, 12 by submission. He can beat you any which way. He has 17 fights with the PFL over his career, including, of course, that Oleg Popov fight that he won last year for the 2024 heavyweight finals for the PFL by the triangle choke in the first round. So this is a guy, again, not that Corey Anderson is some schlub that you're just throwing in there, but a guy who's going up to heavyweight for the first time. Supposed to fight Nemkov, who was a guy who was a light heavyweight that went up to heavyweight, kind of more maybe his mix, a guy who he knows well from fighting him. And instead of getting that, he is now getting the champion at the heavyweight from 2024 in the PFL. A guy who has a long career, has beaten lots of different guys. So not an easy welcome for Corey Anderson, a big challenge for him in his first fight up at heavyweight. We'll see how he does with that one. But those 4 fights at the top make you very interested in watching this card, despite probably a lot of guys that you're not going to know throughout the rest of it for PFL Africa. But, you sure will get to know as they make their way up through that tournament. So that card in Cape Town looking very enticing on July 19th. Make sure to check that out. We also found out a little bit more about the PFL Europe. Now, we talked about and started watching that, of course, back on May 10th in Belfast with the aforementioned Paul Hughes headlining that card. We saw the lightweight tournament get underway for PFL Europe. Now that schedule is going to continue. We found out some more dates and some more fights for that one. Saturday, July 5th, right after Independence Day here in the U.S., you will get a first-round battle in Brussels, Belgium, with bantamweights on the card. Then in September, you will find the semifinals. The location is still to be determined, as well as the date. But somewhere in September, we will get the semifinals for that, as well as December 13th, you will get the finals for PFL Europe. So that one, we have a date and a location. Lyon, France. So we get some locations on the first round, not sure on the semis, but finals locked in back in France. Now, of course, PFL, that July 5th card over in Europe, we have started to find out some fights as well. It's going to be co-main evented at bantamweight by Tyler Lapalus and Ali Taleb. Now, of course, Lapalus is a 33-year-old French fighter, just signed with the PFL, but has a long history in MMA, 21-4, mostly by submission or decision. So he's a guy that's going to mix it up on the ground in a lot of cases, but fought for the UFC. He was on a 2-fight win streak with the UFC before leaving and now being part of the PFL, signing with them, and beat Vince Morales and Cody Stamann in his last 2 fights. So guys that you know, this is a guy who has made a name for himself over here in the UFC. Now going to start doing the same with the PFL. Over in Brussels is going to be his first fight against Taleb. Taleb, the 27-year-old Swede, is the 2024 PFL Men at Bantamweight champion. Was supposed to fight in the World Championship tournament here for the PFL at Bantamweight, but was pulled. We didn't know why at first. Now we find out he's going to be on this card. He's going to be part of this tournament to maybe take one step up instead of a big leap that he was in competition going from the MENA tournament to the World Tournament. So now he gets to start over in Europe. He's on a 3-fight win streak, 12-1 for his career, 7 wins by KO TKO, and is 5-1 in the PFL. So that is your co-main event at those bantamweights. The main event, we found out, will be a bantamweight battle between Patrick Habarora and Boris Antagana. Both these guys from Belgium. So you got the Belgium card in Brussels. You got the 2 undefeated Belgian prospects going to be headlining it at bantamweight as part of this. Habarora, the Belgian bomber, as they call him, is 6-0. 5 of his 6 wins are by KO TKO, and he has a 21-6 amateur record where he won his last 8 fights. So this is a guy with a long career, even though he only has 6 fights under his belt in his pro career. He's been fighting for a long time. He's got a lot of experience. We'll see how that translates as he headlines this card against Antanaga, the 5-0 fighter who is all his wins are by finish, 4 by KO TKO, 1 by submission. So he is not one to go to the judges so far in his early career. It is going to be very interesting to watch those guys match up at home in Brussels in front of the Belgian crowd. Habib Rohrer has actually been talking about how exciting that is, how big that is for Belgium, that you never have these kind of cards for Belgium. These organizations have not gone over there. Of course, you have had a lot of European cards for different organizations in combat sports, especially MMA. The UFC has been to many places. It's been to France. It's been to the UK. It's been to many different venues in Asia, in the US, Australia, Canada, Brazil. But it has not been over to Brussels, as neither has the PFL. And now they will do that with PFL Europe, as you see it there. The quotes from Habarora as he gets ready to put on a show in front of his countrymen at home. It should be very exciting to see that tournament really get underway there for PFL Europe. I'm excited, especially when you see such great fights at the top. When you add in that mix of the former UFC fighter and Lapalus, and you add in Taleb, the PFL fighter who has that championship mentality from PFL MENA. Can he make that step up and win the European tournament? Pull a Dakota Ditcheva, then come over to the U.S. and win that tournament, because he was supposed to come to the U.S. and they said, you know what? Let's take it down a notch and give him a little bit more runway here to start his career. So he will do that in Europe. But I'm excited to see what they do in Brussels, as well as where those semifinals will be and where the finals will be, of course, in France. We'll see those lightweights return, but the bantamweight should be getting into action as well. We've seen the full card for that announced as well. A lot of, again, fighters that we may not know here on this side of the pond in the U.S. Some we will, plenty we don't, but names we will surely start to learn about as they make their way through PFL Europe and try to win those 2 tournaments. It should be awesome to see. And as I said, that card over in South Africa, that's going to really bring a lot of eyeballs to get people to check out PFL Africa as they start that tournament, with Francis Ngannou, of course, being a big part of that as well. A very, very shrewd move by the PFL. Instead of just having, some of these fighters from over there that you've never heard of and you don't pay attention to, they say, you know what? Let's stack this card with people to draw you in, and then we can introduce you to the others. Good moves by the PFL as they build out these cards all over the world. Europe, Africa. They got Pan-Pacific one going as well. All that as the PFL expands around the world.
Buy or sell, Devers will be traded this season. Let's also not forget that there's $300 million on the table due to Devers, which eliminates him from, what would you say, like 17 teams?
Oh, I would think more than 17, maybe 27. Oh, that's a joke. But how many teams could afford him? All right, 5, 6. How many teams needed a third baseman who can't play third base? You know, how many people want to deal with his attitude? He hasn't come off looking good in any of this. Whether you believe he should have anyway, he doesn't look good at this. Will he be traded? No, he won't be traded. The salary alone makes it highly unlikely. He's a great hitter. All right, no doubt he can hit. But other than that, there's too many between the money and the attitude and no really position for him here. He's not getting dealt anytime soon.
Buy or sell? If the season ended today, Hunter Brown would win the American League Cy Young Award.
Hunter Brown has been fantastic. All right, the guy that Craig's teasing, by the way, is Tariq Skubal of the Detroit Tigers here, who's certainly right up there with them. Max Fried for the Yankees has had a fantastic season. They finally lost a start where he pitched it against Seattle the other day. They'd won every start. He's been fantastic. The season ended today with Hunter Brown winning the American Cy Young Award. I certainly couldn't argue it if he did. That being said, he's going up against Skubal, who won it last year, going up against Fried of the Yankees. My guess is that he'll need a year. You understand what I'm saying? He needs a year before he can get that kind of recognition if he's tied with somebody. If he's clearly ahead, then I think he would win here. But as of right now, would he win it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say it would be probably Max Fried.
Fantasy Sports Today. Weekends starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Now, we're excited about all those fights for the PFL overseas, over in Africa, and of course in Brussels, but they got plenty of stuff going on at home. Of course, we've been talking about all this tournament, the 2025 World Tournament that they're having on all these different brackets, the 8 different weight classes. We're getting into the semifinals here. And of course, the dates, as we know, June 12th, Nashville, Tennessee, June 20th, Wichita, Kansas, and June 27th in Chicago, Illinois for the semifinals. And then they're going to be on the road for the finals as well. They had all the first round in Orlando, moving kind of through the middle of the country for the semis. And then we're going to go down the eastern seaboard for the finals, August 1st, Atlantic City, August 15th, Charlotte, North Carolina, and then August 21st in Hollywood, Florida. So plenty of great places. You can make sure you check out the PFL as they wrap up this World Tournament before we even get into all these other cards they're going to have throughout the year on all the different platforms that they're doing. But first, let's talk about these cards as we have gotten fights announced. We knew the matchups where they were going to be. We didn't know where they were going to stack up on the card. So let's break that down a little bit as we get ready for these semifinals to get into gear here coming up next week. Now, of course, we knew that Jason Jackson and Thad Jean were going to headline that semifinal card on June 12th. They were making the tour of Nashville, doing all the media in there. We're going to try to catch up with Thad Jean next week on the show and talk to him about that. But right under that one, Jesus Pinedo versus Gabriel Braga. They're going to rematch again for the third time. That's going to be awesome to see. That's, of course, you got to put that up the top there. Logan Storley, Masayaka Kikuri. Little surprised this one's that high on the card, given that, these guys are going to be kind of a grinded out kind of fight. But there's semifinals fight. You got to throw it in there. And Habibullah versus Kim as the fourth one on the main card there. But then you look at the early card where you got some of these alternate bouts and some of these showcase bouts that are going to be involved. I love that they put together Jeremy Kennedy and Adam Borch. Both these guys could have been in these semifinals very easily if the matchups went differently. But now they will match up against each other. Yves Landu, of course, on the card as well. Should be a great one. So that one is, you look at the card, it's very well constructed. The top 4 fights, obviously, are there at the top. And I love that Kennedy Borch is going to be the one to wrap up that early card. That's the matchup they made of 2 guys that lost. Could be a great one between those 2 guys. Then, when you look at June 20th, the main card of that one has Rabadanov versus J.J. Wilson as the main fight. A little surprised about that one. But you got Luz Carmouche, Laura Donna as the co-main. That should be a great fight. Could have been easily a main fight there. Hadley versus Alves for their semifinal matchup as the third fight. And then Mondo Gutierrez, Justin Wetzel. I mean, that one's going to be the first one to lead off the night. It could have been a main event. It could have been higher on the card. But that one might not be a bad matchup to throw there, right, to kick things off on the main card for the PFL doing it that one. And then you see some of these other semifinal matchups mixed in there on the prelim. Little surprised, some of them could have been bumped up, like a Primus Davis, I think, could have been on the main card. A Jenna Bishop, Shakalava, Shakalova is going to be a great matchup. It might be a little bit more of a grinder one, but that could be easily on that main card as well. So there are some fights here that, you're seeing some of these other fighters that lost making a showcase battle, like a Matos, a Kelly. All should be some great fights, but maybe could have made it a 6, 5, 6, 7, even a main card there with the Primus and Bishop fights making the main card, or you easily could have shoveled one of those on there and maybe bumped down Rabanov-Wilson. I was a little surprised that one is the main event, the headliner for that card, but still a great card from the top. I would have made it maybe a little bit bigger to include some of those other ones, at least one of those other ones on the main card, but still going to be awesome to see June 20th, of course, down there in Wichita, Kansas. Then to finish up the semifinal matchups, we have on the main card, Fabian Edwards versus Josh Silveira to be the last fight we see. That is going to be awesome. I love that as the main event almost as much as I love Phil Davis versus Sullivan Cauley. I mean, you really couldn't go wrong with those two matchups, whichever way that you put them. Dalton Rosta versus Aaron Jeffrey as that third fight's great. I might have put Carlos Jr. versus Powell a little bit on top of that. And then surprisingly, you see there at the bottom a bantamweight showcase battle between Sergio Pettis and Rafion Stotts. Of course, Pettis making his PFL debut, getting bumped down all the way to the first fight on the main card. Usually when you're putting on a showcase fight like that, it's a main event, or at least a co-main. This one all the way down as the first one on the main card. A little surprising that that's all the way down there, but a good move by them maybe to get a little bit of excitement and pump things up a little bit with that fight to start off the main card, as we talked about the way they organized some of the early ones. Then you get into the heavyweight semifinals and some of those other fights there. I mean, this is such a stacked card. You do not have a single heavyweight on the main card. Usually when you're talking about combat sports, heavyweights are the main draw, and sometimes with these big boys swinging large and trying to knock each other out, you almost have a guaranteed situation of a possible knockout with some of these. You're not getting that. All of them on the early card there, of course, with Moldavsky versus Romanov as the last fight on the early card. You also have Popov and Nascimento there as one of those other fights. I'm very surprised that one is even getting bumped down by a showcase fight between Biagio Ali Walsh and Ronnie Gibbs, but it is. I thought maybe that's a little disrespectful to the heavyweight guys in the semis there. Maybe at least one of them should be on the heavyweight card, on the main card, or at least both of them be there at the last ones on the early card. But still a good card. When you have that kind of stackness that those guys are getting all the way bumped down there, that's what it is. I also like the matchup there between Bilosteny and Williams as two guys on the alternate heavyweight cards there. That should be a great matchup of two guys who could have been close to getting into this tournament semifinals. And then Newman there at the bottom and the middleweight, trying to get back into things, trying to make his name bigger, stepping in there on short notice. Not getting the results he wanted, but still getting another chance here. I love that he gets that second chance here with the PFL to make a name for himself on the lower end of the semifinal card. But this is huge. These cards going from top to bottom. Some great matchups. Some of them maybe would have organized a different way, but still a great job by the PFL to put all these together as we get these three cards, of course, over there, as we said, in Nashville, Tennessee, Wichita, Kansas, and Chicago, Illinois. Going to be some great month of fights there for the PFL for these semifinals. Now, as we get ready to move on, before we get out of here, a guy who's going to be moving on himself is Patchy Mix, who's going to be moving on from the PFL. The PFL put out a statement that they decided to part ways, to go their separate ways, that Patchy Mix is going to be moving on for the PFL. The 31-year-old, of course, sitting there with a great record of 20-1. 7 wins in a row. No love, Patchy Mix. A lot of submission wins, 13 on his record. 9-1 overall for the Bellator. Didn't make the transition over to the PFL when they bought them out, so we'll see what is next for him. But probably going to be a lot of suitors trying to get their hands on Patchy Mix, and we'll see if we see him in the UFC or other organizations after he is released here from the PFL. Great career from him so far, and we hope to see it continued elsewhere. Looking forward to seeing where his next chapter goes. But when we come back, before we get out of here, we're going to switch over, go a little west, and talk lights out extreme fighting. We're going to cover California. PFL is going through the center of the country, then going down the East Coast. We're going to cover the West Coast here as we talk out lights out extreme fighting. We talk to Curtis Millender before he makes his headlining card up in a couple weeks here for LXF.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups. My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
The Chiefs Chargers in Brazil on Friday on YouTube. They're going to give everyone that game for free. They're so generous because the rest of the season they're going to fleece you for all your money.
That's one, Scott. That division to me, based on what's happened to the Chiefs the last couple seasons, that division, the AFC West, could be up for grabs here. I know Chiefs fans think I'm probably out of my mind.
Pharrell, coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
I actually like the fact that they went 7 games against a quality opponent here and still had to face adversity even in a game number 7. How are we setting up this next series with a rested Minnesota Timberwolves team taking on OKC fresh from the fight here?
They had an extremely, maybe it's just too strong a statement to say, easier pathway than people thought, particularly because of their size.
The early line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 18.5 points live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. We're going to close things out today talking about lights out extreme fighting and bringing on a man who's going to be headlining the next card. We talked, of course, a couple weeks ago with the man who created it all, Sean Merriman, lights out extreme fighting founder and president, and the guy who's going to be headlining that card that we talked about with him, June 14th, lights out extreme fighting 25, is going to be Curtis Millender, the LXF middleweight, who joins us now on the show. Curtis, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on with us as you get ready for this battle against Millender. It should be a great fight. But before we get into that fight specifically, let's talk a little bit about your background and get some people who may not have followed you as closely as they should have. I mean, you've been around for a long time. You've been in this game 21-11 and won no contest for your record, but you fought everywhere. You fought in the UFC, you fought in Bellator, you fought in the PFL. So what for you, you're at this point in your career, how do you feel like these travels and going to these different organizations and seeing different things has, helped you grow and become a better fighter even at your age as you are right now?
I'm just blessed and fortunate that I still get big opportunities. Being in the game as long as I have and literally fighting in every show, all the major organizations, I'm just very blessed and fortunate that I still get these opportunities to go out there and put on a show. I am definitely at the tail end. Most likely the end of the year I'll be done. But I just want to kick some ass and, put a stamp on this legacy on my way out.
Well, we look forward to seeing, the next year or so of your career as you close this chapter. And, of course, there's going to be more things for you coming in the future that we look forward to. And I'm sure one of those things is, focusing even more, as you already do, but even more so with, your parenting. And, I want to give you some props and some commentation there for, I saw the one fight outfit you had. You have a son, obviously you have a child with autism, and the awareness you brought and that you focused on with your one fight, the walkout stuff that you had on, your shorts, your robe, everything with the puzzle pieces, of course, a great symbol of autism awareness. How has that helped you, mature and grow as a father and a person and a fighter, dealing and doing with that every day?
The one thing that stands out the most, especially when you're dealing with having children that are special needs, is just patience. To really, really learn to be patient as patient as possible. And I've always been a pretty patient dude, but this is definitely made that skill set a lot a lot easier to deal with. And, you know, it's, you know, he's a special kid. And, you know, I actually have a neighbor who his kids are both special needs too. And yesterday we actually had a sit down and talk about, like, you know, like nothing ruffles our feathers anymore. You know, dealing with what we're doing with our children, like nothing else ruffles our feathers anymore. Nothing, road rage, all that kind of stuff that, you know, that you kind of are impatient with on a daily basis. None of that bothers us anymore. You know, I guess we just see things in the bigger picture.
It certainly does, and as someone who has you know, special needs children in their extended family as well, I you know where you're coming from and appreciate everything you do. And now you know, you do plenty of other things in your life as well, but of course fighting is the one that we know you for the most. And you got this great fight coming against Millender right now. What drew you to Lights Out as your next organization? As I said, you fought at all different organizations. You fought guys like Thiago Alves and Bilal Muhammad in the UFC. Now you're fighting in this great organization with Lights Out and Sean Merriman. What drew you to it? And how important is this fight for you, coming off a couple losses here, to, as you said earlier, you know, cement that legacy for your fight career?
You know, it's definitely a fun fight. I had a couple options, you know, but like I said, you know, I want to have some fun. You know, I got 2 to 3 fights left, and I want to go out there and put on a show. And you know, I've sparred with him before. I've seen him in the gym once, and I know me and him can put on a show. And that's what I want to do, man. I want to go out with a bang.
Well, the fans, of course, always appreciate that. You know, that you're not just going with the safe fight. You're not just going trying to get that win. You're trying to put on that show. That's always something that draws the fans in. And I'm sure it's something that drew Merriman to you as well, because he likes guys that are going to go on there and put on that show. How excited are you to be headlining this one? And what kind of fan base are you going to have there backing you up in California for this great fight?
We at home. We're at home. I'm a Southern California boy in and out, and I know we're gonna pack the house in Long Beach, just like I do it everywhere.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that, Curtis Millender. Thank you so much for coming on with us. We're looking forward to seeing the fight. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon, and see you in Lights Out again soon as well after this great fight against Millender. Make sure people check it out Saturday, June 14th. Of course, it's always available on the Lights Out Sports app. That is all for us here on the Combat Sports Report here on SportsGrid. Thanks so much for everybody joining us. We'll talk to you next week about everything going on in the world of combat sports. We'll cover the BKFC, the PFL, Lights Out, all of it here on SportsGrid.
Face is the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're the face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces in the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
And if you go through Cat, that means Cat at 11-1 could be Eastern Conference Finals MVP. The worst team in the WNBA is the Chicago Sky. They have no perimeter play. They're playing too many minutes. And Angel Reese doesn't have the help she needs.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I already heard yesterday that he's got no shot to win the Cy Young because it's going to Scooble again. Scooble's winning the Cy Young, no shot for free.
They're both terrific. They both have incredible numbers and credentials and stats and strikeouts and ERA and everything, like every single category. Freed is right there with him.
Pharrell, coast to coast, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.